Fame creates attention, and attention creates money. And behind every empire, there's a financial story. Fame finance. We don't just follow the fame, we follow money.
In this episode, we have Shebeshkt, whose real name is Lehlono Lokahleo Chauke, a South African musician from Leboahom in Limpopo province. He became one of the country's most talked about emerging artists through a combination of raw street authenticity, viral social media traction, and an unconventional independent rise. He is associated with the Bolo House and the Lekompo music movement, a sound rooted in Limpopo's local dance culture that blends township energy, repetitive chants, and street storytelling. Unlike many mainstream South African artists who rely heavily on radio and major label marketing, Shebeshkt built a momentum organically online through TikTok. Before the headlines, before the quadrums, there was a momentum. Shebeshkt didn't rise through traditional South African music pipeline. No polished rollout, no heavy radio rotation, no industry manufactured image. Instead, he love-raised viral distribution. His breakout momentum came from platforms like TikTok, where his sound spread organically, turning raw local energy into national demand. And financially, that matters because virality changed the economics of music. Artists no longer need labels to become visible. They needed attention. And Shebeshkt understood that better than any artist. But here's where it gets interesting. He wasn't completely disconnected from the industry. He later secured a distribution deal with Virgin Music Group, which is also owned by Universal, giving him access to global infrastructure while still maintaining more control than a traditional signed artist. This is what we call a hybrid independent model, not a fully DIY, not a fully corporate. And financially, it's powerful because in this model, revenue splits are often more favorable. Ownership of masters can remain with the artist, and branding stays tightly controlled. But it comes with one dangerous trade-off. You're the business. And when the business depends almost entirely on one person, any instability becomes a financial risk. Let's break down the economics. For most independent artists in South Africa, streaming is not the primary income driver. Even millions of streams on platforms like YouTube and Spotify create an inconsistent revenue relative to the visible they create. And Shebesht's breakout song gained a massive online traction, but virality alone doesn't create wealth. Live bookings do. That's where artists convert attention into real cash flow. And Shebesht had the perfect formula for the live circuit. He had a viral recognition, a strong grassroots support, and he had a high energy crowd appeal. And South Africa's performance economy, artists with that kind of momentum can command tens of thousands of rands per bookings during their peak demand, which means his revenue model likely looked something like this. So his primary income was bookings and appearances. The secondary was partnership and promotional deals. And the third one was streaming revenue. And that creates a very specific type of a business, a reputation dependent on cash flow machine, which brings us to the collapse risk. In finance, there's a term called Cayman risk. It's when a business becomes so dependent on one individual that any disruption to that person threatens the entire operation. And in the case of Shebesht, that threat has escalated dramatically. So as of May 2026, the artist remains in custody after multiple failed bail attempts. And in recent court proceedings, they revealed that prosecutors have just added 11 more charges, bringing the total to 20. And the charges now include attempted murder, robbery, multiple firearm-related offenses, assault, malicious damage to property. According to recent court proceedings in Bulwan, the regional court, the matter has now been postponed to allow the defense team time to prepare
for the expanded case. And financially, this changes everything, because in entertainment, brand value is built on visibility, but commercial value is built on predictability. On the other hand, promoters need reliability, sponsors need stability, event organizers need insurable talent. And a prolonged legal case will always create event cancellation, reduced bookings, high reputational risk, and sponsors will obviously withdraw. There are already signs of pressure building around the brand, not necessarily because audience have disappeared, but because institutional trust is starting to weaken. Because when controversy becomes prolonged, and in entertainment, economics signals move. So now, where does this leave the business of Shebeshkt? So, on the other hand, he has a very powerful grassroots brand, a proven viral traction, a strong audience loyalty, and an independent leverage. On the other side, there's a legal instability, a heavy dependence on live performance income, and an escalating reputational risk. And here's the uncomfortable reality. When an artist's business is built primarily around personal presence, things like custody becomes more than a legal issue. It becomes a revenue freeze. No shows, no appearances, no touring cycle. And unlike catalog-heavy global superstars who earn passively from a decade of music ownership, emerging artists like Shebeshkt, they always depend on momentum. And momentum, honestly, is fragile. But there's also another side to this story. Controversy can increase attention, and attention in modern entertainment can sometimes increase demand, which means if Shebeshkt eventually returns to the public with his audience still in his side, I'm telling you, the comeback itself could make him much bigger than before. But only if the brand survives this. The story of Shebeshkt isn't just about music, it's about a new kind of African entertainment economy, where virality can replace gatekeepers, where independence creates leverage, but where the entire business can become dangerously dependent on one individual, because modern fame moves faster. But financial stability, that's much harder to build. So the real question is no longer whether Shebeshkt became successful independently. It's whether independent success alone is enough to survive a prolonged instability. This is Fame Finance. We don't just follow the fame, we follow the money. Like and subscribe.